Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United. I know I'm about to go live because my cat decides to stand staring at me like she's about to leap on the laptop. Hello, welcome back to All for United. It's Ben here with another transfer roundup, and again, a superb guest on. Here she is. I told you, didn't I? I said it was about to happen. Happens every show. Another superb guest to come and give us a behind the scoop access around stories involving Manchester United in the transfer window. So happy to be joined by the Manchester United correspondent for Goal. James Robson is on with us today. James, thank you for your time, my friend. We've just been talking about how busy you are. And especially now, I suppose a generic overview. It looks like United, from the outside, are trying to get some deals done before they board that plane to Thailand, is it, next week?
I'm sure it feels like that because, of course, this week, it feels like there's movement, doesn't it, this week? But it's probably not a fair representation of what they've been doing so far this summer. I appreciate that when deals aren't announced straight away, and especially when your closest rivals or your fiercest rivals, if you like, City and Liverpool are doing massive deals. It feels like, well, what are United doing? And I've seen a lot of that on social media, obviously, like just about anybody else. I think United would say that they have been working throughout, since the end of the season, trying to get these signings in. I know my information from earlier in the summer was that they really felt that they'd done the groundwork already, a lot of the groundwork, if you like, and also they had a good feeling that they were well ahead of schedule. I know that fans might be saying, well, no signings have been made, so how could they have been ahead of schedule? But so much of this happens in the background. And when Ten Hag had that meeting with John Murtow in Amsterdam at the end of last season, at the end of the Dutch season, they talked about exactly what they wanted, their big plans for United this summer. So that's a huge part of it, just getting everyone in agreement and alignment, if you like, of what you want to do.
I suppose that leads us on nicely to the first player that we need to talk about, because it looks like it's more or less a done deal for Malacia, the young Dutch left back from Feyenoord. I suppose to some United fans, it looked like an agreement was there between Feyenoord and Lyon, and then United jumped in. By the looks of it, a player that Ten Hag personally admires. Is that fair to say? Because it looks like that he followed him at Ajax quite a bit, and also wanted to sign him for Ajax as well. Is this a position United have been looking at? Do you believe Malacia is the type of profile of player that United have been looking at, and the move was more in line with the fact that the opportunity was there for them then to get the deal done quickly?
I think you've alluded to it there with it being a Ten Hag target. Look, Malacia's name from certainly from top of my head, I don't think he was linked with United pre Ten Hag. He's obviously a player he knows well. And that's where I guess United are relying on his expertise. I don't think there's any coincidence that a lot of these players that United are looking at or being linked with are either Dutch and or play in Holland. That's obviously going to be his area of expertise. And also, I suppose, if you've been part of United, i.e. John Murtow for a number of years now, you would probably look at that left back position and say, it could do with strengthening. I don't think Tellez has had the desired effect. I think he did in his first season, not necessarily from a playing point of view, but he really seemed to spur Luke Shaw on. And Luke Shaw was fantastic that first season. But on the back of last season, I think it's probably fair to say that they need extra strengthening. I think United were absolutely keeping tabs on Malacia during this window so far. So even though Lyon went as far as they did in terms of even agreeing a fee over it, you've got to remember his agent's the same agent of De Jong as well. So I think it's probably fair to assume that United would have been aware what was happening with that player, and they've come in with a bid now which Feyenoord have accepted.
It also looks like we're not paying United tax on this deal. I mean, he's a young 22-year-old. He's highly rated. He was in a lot of people's, I suppose I had a look at a lot of different articles around some of the best young talents in Europe, and he was in a lot of those write-ups because of his age and because statistically he looks like a very good player defensively and offensively, which is where United have had those issues, especially on the right-hand side, but the left-hand side of defence as well. So with a player like Malacia, there is not a huge expectation, do you believe, here from United or the fans for a player to come in and immediately, so to speak, make such a massive impact? Because it's looking like 17 million euros. I don't know what information you have on that, which is nearly 15 million pounds. There's not a huge risk attached to signings like that, is there?
Not really. Of course, they don't want to lose money ever. But again, this could be a case of they've played it smart and they've waited and they've seen what Feyenoord are willing to accept, because Feyenoord, they struck a deal with Lyon. So United knew the sort of money it was, and United have come in with a slightly higher offer. But that is a case of not just leaping, because look, if let's say Lyon weren't there, and as soon as you get wind of Manchester United want to play it, like you said, the United tax, and it just is the way, and that's what it is. They're not the only club that get hit with that as well. But if they know, because they've stepped back, if they know this is the sort of expectation Feyenoord have, then you can come in with a realistic offer. In terms of expectation on him, look, if he's a Ten Hag signing, he's a player that Ten Hag has specifically identified, then you would hope and expect that he's going to be a really good player. But I guess when you've already got Luke Shaw there, what you want is competition. And if that makes Luke Shaw perform like he did in the season before last, then that's great.
What do you think this does then to, so to speak, the competition for even just Luke Shaw? Now that we've got another young left back coming in, clearly a player that Ten Hag likes, and clearly Ten Hag wants to bring in personalities and players with certain qualities that fit his ethos more than anything. Because we know he's quite a flexible manager when it comes to formation. But if there's one thing with Ten Hag we know, he really likes playing progressive football that does build out from the back, but is also quick in tempo. Also, players allowed to flourish and be creative, and young players with personality allowed to express themselves on the football pitch. Malacia sort of fits that profile. So what do you think this means for a player like Brandon Williams, who spent last season out on loan at Norwich, hasn't really impressed? What about Alex Telles? I've never been a massive Telles fan. I think the best thing Telles done in a United shirt was make Luke Shaw look like Roberto Carlos for a season. So what happens to players like Telles and Williams? Do you think United is going to be actively trying to offload them this summer?
I think with United, they've got to be careful in terms of how they communicate who they're willing to let go. This is something I've been working on today, as it happens, a piece I've been working on today. But yeah, the arrival of Malacia will have a direct impact on Telles and Brandon Williams. I'd expect both to go. To be totally honest, if Malacia comes in, and whether Williams is a permanent one or not, let's see. But as you mentioned, Malacia is a young player anyway. But yeah, I would think both would go. There's not certainly someone like Telles at the age he is, the profile he is. You don't need three left backs, and obviously Luke Shaw, long contract. Still, we know what he's like when he's at his best. He can be fantastic. And yeah, I would think that they're going to have two players playing for that position. And yeah, Telles and Williams would be a couple of what I think will be a lot of players who will make their way out of United this summer.
We know things can always change, but I think as far as we're concerned, deal with Feyenoord is done. Now it's just down to player. How quickly now do you expect this to move forward then? Do you think we'll be edging towards an announcement before the end of the week, over the weekend? Are you expecting this one to go through now at a pace?
Look, I would think it would go through. Again, this all comes down to the way United have approached this, in waiting to make the bid. Like I said, there's the same agent as De Jong, so you would assume United would be relatively confident that Malacia would be open to going to United. So, I think that is a deal that will get done. In terms of putting a date or a time on it, probably not a lot of point in even doing that, because that really is just the last thing. The photos and the pictures of them signing the documents, that sort of thing. It's just that's just dotting the I's and crossing the T's, if you like. But I think that's a move that's going to happen.
One that we're still very much waiting on is Frenkie de Jong. Now, there's a lot of stuff out there, James. I think from my point of view, what's easier for me, probably more difficult for you with the amount of information you potentially have, is to ask you a very broad question around where we are at now with this deal, because there's a lot out there about whether a fee has been agreed, if a total fee's been agreed, if installments have been, if De Jong has said that he doesn't want to come to United, he wants to stay at Barcelona. In your mind, or with what you're reporting, where are United at with the Frenkie de Jong deal?
So, in terms of an absolute final agreement, no, that's not there. But there is confidence now that, broadly speaking, it's going to be a £56 million deal upfront. Then there's going to be the add-ons, and that's probably more the sticking point now to get precisely what those add-ons are, the amount it will be, and what he has to achieve in the United shirt for Barcelona to get that money. Because you've got to remember, if he goes for £56 million, that's not a great look for Barcelona. The reason he's for sale is because Barca want to do business themselves, and they need to get players out of that club because of their financial situation. They did want €100 million for him. And United were adamant all along they weren't going to pay what they believed was over the odds. And that's a difficult situation, that, when they say, we don't want to pay over the odds, when we all know that he's your leading target. So you pretty much pay what's required to bring in a player like that. And in a normal summer, maybe he wouldn't even be available, because top players don't tend to leave clubs like Barcelona, Real Madrid. So United are in this fortunate position where they can actually get a player like that at that age out of Barcelona. So to have struck a deal, or to be very close to striking a deal at £56 million, I think it's pretty brilliant business from them, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. Now, in terms of him wanting to come, I think we know that. I mean, he's even alluded to it publicly that his ideal was not to leave Barcelona, but I always felt the deal would happen for the very that Barcelona wanted to sell. They absolutely wanted to sell. So ultimately, players don't tend to stay when they're told that they can go. I don't think United would be pursuing this as long and as hard as they have if they weren't pretty convinced that him being willing to come to Old Trafford was absolutely on the table. So him agreeing to it, I don't think that's going to be a problem either. I think now we're really just looking at what those add-ons are going to be, and Barca will be trying to get that up as high as they possibly can, because that, as I say, that basic price is way below what they wanted.
I think you're right with that, and I think it's really interesting that no football club goes and talks to another football club without getting some sort of idea around whether that footballer would be interested in joining should a deal be reached. I'd be very shocked if the thing that pulls the carpet out from underneath this deal is De Jong walking into Barcelona and going, no, I'm not going anywhere, because that also doesn't help the player at all, because at the moment, Frenkie de Jong and any footballer is a valuable asset to a football club. And if a bid comes in and the club wants to see that player go, it's very rare that then that player comes out a good side of that conversation if they don't go. So I think that for Frenkie de Jong, he's clearly got a club and a manager that wants him in, Ten Hag. And also, by the way, we've spoken to some Spanish journalists and also, La Liga reporters on this show. And they've all said how they've been slightly disappointed with Frenkie de Jong in La Liga and playing for Barcelona, and how he is a phenomenal footballer, don't get him wrong, but he hasn't made such an impact on the Barcelona team as the young lads who are coming through now in Gavi, in Pedri, and that they expect from the likes of Kessie coming in and other players coming as well. They just signed Torre as well, a young talent. They think that De Jong, really, out of any of the assets that Barcelona have got, is the only one that's sellable, and that they would want to sell. So I think for De Jong, it's a chance for him to still progress his career at United and be a part of something that will suit him a lot more than maybe Barcelona, because Barcelona want to play those young stars. They want to get them in games. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. But like you say, these reports about De Jong not wanting to come to United are more pro-Barcelona press than they are anyone else, which is obviously quite telling, because Barcelona need to come out of this deal, like you said, with some sort of credibility from the point of view that, hey, yeah, this was the overall price we got. And look, he didn't want to go. He knows it's a step. Like, you know what I mean? It's all part of the mind games from the club, I think. But it'll be interesting because time, James, and we talk about this, and you've mentioned this at the start, it seems like things progress more week on week with this deal than day on day. So would it be unrealistic for us to expect him on the pre-season tour plane come next week?
That's hard to say. I can't answer that one, really. What I would say is that with this deal, United knew going into it from the very start that it was going to be protracted. And it just points to how much they really want him, that they were prepared to do that. And it's taken up a huge chunk of their summer so far. And I think there has been an element of this deal holding up other deals, if you like, in terms of United needing to know how much they were committing to this deal before then being able to really know how much they were going to commit elsewhere. For instance, with Darwin Núñez, they absolutely liked him, but he was going to cost a lot of money, and without doubt, De Jong was the priority. Now, if they had gone head to head with Liverpool for him, and who knows what that price would have gone up to. Look, I'm not saying that Núñez would have turned down Liverpool anyway, but I'm just saying if United had made that price rocket higher and higher, who knows how that would have impacted the rest of their business this summer. And Ten Hag clearly sees a priority in central midfield. That's why he's trying to buy two of them, in Eriksen and De Jong. I think another thing I'd say about De Jong really is that I think it's the sort of signing that United haven't tended to do too well. United tend to buy top of the market, top prices, top of the market. Those kind of like, maybe you'd call them second phase signings, as players who it hasn't quite worked out for with the big move, like precisely this move. He's gone to Barcelona, and Barcelona wouldn't be selling him if he was their star midfielder. It's as simple as that. They're selling him because he maybe hasn't quite lived up to what they hoped. And United are plucking him off and doing it at a good price as well. It's not the sort of thing they've tended to do, and I don't know the precise reasons for that, but they do tend to buy absolute top of the market, top prices, which I think this is again another encouraging sign, and maybe something that again Murtal deserves some credit for, that he's looking at these sort of signings, which maybe they wouldn't have done previously.
I think another good example of this, and moving on from De Jong, is some rumours around Ajax defender Lisandro Martinez. Now, it looks like Arsenal have put in bids for him from Ajax and have potentially got close to some sort of price tag that could be deemed acceptable from Ajax, despite all their outgoings that they have at the moment within the Eredivisie club. There's reports going around that United may jump in on this because Ten Hag, again, is a big admirer of Martinez. And it looks like, again, with clubs in negotiation, it's maybe a player that United would have paid 60, 70, 80 million pound for before. Whereas now you're looking at maybe a 40 to 50 million euro transfer fee. So it hasn't got as big a, so to speak, label of a risk on it. Can you see United still going in and raiding Ajax? Because there is some talk around Anthony as well. And I'd just be shocked if United going for two players. We know Timber's probably going to stay there now after Van Gaal's wise words in his ears. But what do you make of the rumours around Lisandro Martinez?
Well, I think certainly it's no secret that Ten Hag does like him. He absolutely is one of the centre backs United have been looking at this summer. I think Arsenal's concern would be Malacia and what's happened there. United have obviously just kept abreast of what's happening with him, and they've moved in, if you like, at the last minute. And that would be Arsenal's concern now, because they're doing all of the hard running for Martinez, and United have just asked to be kept up to date with what's happening. So they're just watching, and Arsenal have seen what they've done already. And that would be a concern for them, especially also, throwing in Arsenal. You could also talk about Rafinha as well. The Arsenal were going for him, and now Chelsea are swooping. That would be another concern for them. But this, I don't know if this is going to be United's new way of working, that they just hold back, and then nip in when someone else has done all the work. It's a dangerous move if you do that. But they have expressed their interest. So before anything happens with Arsenal, you would imagine United will get that call, and then they can make their mind up from there if they want to go in hard or not.
It's interesting because obviously the centre of midfield is what's been expressed to us, and I think you've also potentially written some pieces on this, James, how the centre of midfield position was Ten Hag's priority, and obviously we're still in those negotiations, but we're also keeping tabs on quite a few players, being Malacia, Martinez, Anthony, etc. And other clubs jumping in for these players, maybe forcing United's hand a little bit, but also working into our favour. So maybe there is an element of, and this isn't a question, maybe something that's running in my head more, maybe there is an element that there's confidence that United know how much they're going to be paying right now to Barcelona should the De Jong deal go through. So they know how much more money they've got to work with for other signings, which would fit in with the fact that United have maybe agreed some sort of base fee that you mentioned earlier on, but it's now the complexity around the add-ons and how that works. You know, what was the famous one with Martial? 10 million euros or something if he wins a Ballon d'Or. That was the one, wasn't it? So we know how United like to work for add-ons on that side of things. One more incoming I do want to ask you about is Christian Eriksen. A lot of talk around the timeline on him making a decision. Noises that potentially pick Brentford. Other noises now that apparently he's waiting to see what business United do this window. It's a difficult one, isn't it, for Christian Eriksen? Because surely he's guaranteed a start in that Denmark squad, no matter how much football he gets at United. But also with how good he is, surely United wouldn't express an interest in him if we didn't have a plan for him to get serious game time this season.
I have to admit, I'm surprised with Eriksen that hasn't just been done and dusted. You know, the offer's there for him. He knows United want him. They've made an offer. It's as simple as that. I wouldn't have thought Brentford would be matching any offer that United could make. I think with him, there was an element about whether he wanted to leave London, whether he wanted to stay in London or not. And maybe if Tottenham had been more interested, then we wouldn't even be at this stage now. Maybe he would have just gone straight back there. I think London has been a big part of his thinking. But I think Gary Neville might have tweeted something about this the other week about how this was the problem with United, that someone's actually choosing between them and Brentford. And with all respect to Brentford, choosing between United and Brentford, when has that ever been a question or a debate for any player if he's got an offer from both the clubs? And again, I don't want to be disrespectful to Brentford, because I think he had a great time there. He had a really good relationship with the fans and the manager, but he is a top player. He's a player who left Tottenham to go to Inter Milan because he wanted to win the biggest prizes. Now, even with the problems that United have had, even with the fact that they're in yet another reboot, you have to think his hopes of winning major trophies and being involved in big moments, big occasions are going to be at United rather than Brentford. So the very fact that there's deliberation over that, I would think, would be quite concerning. And there have been whispers coming out here or there that no, he wants to stay at Brentford or not. But you know, he hasn't announced anything either way. I do find it quite strange that that has not already been sealed, if you like. But I think he'd be a brilliant signing for United. And in terms of like regular football, I think he walks straight into that team. And you know, at his age, I think he's 30, is he? He's still got years left in him, and I think he would just be such an impressive addition to that midfield. And all right, I can appreciate you might be thinking who's actually going to win the ball out of those midfielders that they've got, but putting in players like De Jong, Eriksen, really cultured footballers, that's something United have been crying out for a long time now.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I just wonder, and the London things come up, I wonder if there's another club in the mix, or if he has his hats on maybe Tottenham coming back into the frame. I wonder if he is maybe a little bit more desperate for that Tottenham move than Tottenham are desperate to bring him back at the moment. So that's why he's trying to buy time on the situation. That also wouldn't surprise me, because let's face it, Tottenham obviously in good position going into the new season, and with Conte as well. I just wonder if he maybe is holding off until maybe he knows for sure that Tottenham isn't a possibility, because it hasn't been totally disregarded, has it, James? It's just been that we've got other targets at the moment that we want to focus on. And I mean, I can't see Tottenham going and paying 80 million for Gordon and Richarlison, but if that's what Everton want, then, you know, if a deal gets struck there, let's wait and see. But if they don't get one of them, I wonder then if Eriksen is maybe back in the frame and in the picture. So that's why he's holding off slightly. That was my thinking. And another random wild one was, if for whatever reason Di Maria doesn't go to Juventus, then he might think there's a possibility of Italy, but who knows? But yeah, interesting. I'm with you. I thought Eriksen would be our first summer signing when the news came out. I thought it'd be done quickly, but very strange, very odd. Let's talk about outgoings. We haven't heard anything
yet. You have to
remember,
sorry, just a moment. Eriksen's already turned United down once. You know, they wanted him in what was it, the summer of 2019, I think it was. Before he went to, I think, did he end up staying at Spurs for a little bit longer and then went to Inter in the January? So, you know, maybe he doesn't maybe he doesn't see United in that way as maybe we expect a lot of people to, that they're not necessarily the be all and end all for him. If he could turn them down once already, there's no reason why he couldn't do it again.
I think also, like, didn't Levy put a ridiculous price tag on him at that point as well, from what I remember.
There was that as well, but it was his decision not to. No,
Yeah.
he made it clear he didn't want to go there anyway. So.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. We've got about 5 minutes, so I just want to get through a couple of outgoings, if that's right, James. I mean, we'll put it next to Henderson to Forest. We expect that to go through soon. They're just getting all the content out about their club record signing at the moment. Who could blame them?
Agreed. Henderson has been agreed, so that will
go through it.
Announcing it.
Okay, that's cool. What about Andreas Pereira to Fulham? It looks like Fulham want to pay money for Andreas Pereira. Where's that at? Have United accepted the bid? Are talks ongoing? Where are we at with that?
I don't know about whether the bid's actually officially been accepted, but United are absolutely prepared to let him go this summer. He's one of the ones that they're happy to listen to offers for.
And we've spoken about Brandon Williams and Tellez. Obviously, United sniffing around potentially a Martinez deal with Malacia coming in. We need to get defenders off the books, don't we? Wan-Bissaka, Bailly, 2 viable options for United to get rid of this summer. Do you think United are going to be working overtime to shift those out, so to speak?
Again, it's a case of how this is communicated. This is the problem, because, of course, as you mentioned before, the United tax for incomings, there's often the case that if people know that United are trying to get people off their books, they try to get them as cheap as they can or on loan deals. That's been a problem United have had for a long time. But Bailly's one who they will let go. Wan-Bissaka, not quite the same, more a case of, but he's got work to do to impress Ten Hag.
One last question. I always like to end on a bit more of a rival question that's looking at the Premier League. I've seen a lot online today of Sterling and potentially Rafinha to Chelsea. How frightened should the Premier League be of the new Chelsea chairman and owner? That is a fierce upgrade, isn't it, to an attack if they bring those two in?
It's a very good looking forward line. I think Sterling will be a fantastic signing for Chelsea. He's a goal scoring wide man, and Chelsea have got a lot of wide forwards who don't score too many goals, and that's been a problem that they've had for a while. But in terms of just names, well, we could have said last season they had a forward line of Lukaku, Timo Werner, and Hakim Ziyech or Kai Havertz. That didn't work out, did it? So, but I think Thomas Tuchel is getting players that he specifically wants, and I see Sterling fitting in absolutely perfectly with him. Let's see on Rafinha, obviously a really good talent as well. But Chelsea's big problem is defence. They've lost one absolutely world-class defender and another very, very, very good defender, and they're left with a very aging defender in Thiago Silva. So that really has to be. They've got to spend a lot of money just to stand still there. So let's see what he does, what Todd Bowley manages to do defensively.
It makes the decision to let Tomori go to AC Milan look even more ridiculous, which you can
and
even
see as well.
Yes, yeah, and Gay, which again, looking back at Chelsea and the people who have recently resigned, who are in control of all of that, maybe look like shocking resignations at the start or people to leave at the start. But when you look at some of their business actually over the last 3-4 years that they've been in charge of, I mean, it's as bad as United's potentially when you look at it on paper.
It's not. It doesn't look good when as soon as a new owner comes in, he's watching 2/3 of your Champions League winning defence walk away for nothing, and he's watching the club record signing go for an £8 million loan fee. That does not look good at all. I can imagine there were some questions being asked.
Yeah. And brutal questions, which fans are asking United's board at the moment as well. Let's say that. Well, look, hopefully, James, you're going to be writing about confirmed signings soon. Love to do this again. It's been fantastic to get you on. Thank you so much for your time. Go and check out James Robson on Twitter. We'll put his @ in the description and also put it out on our socials. But James, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on goal.com, or you can find me on Twitter at James Allen Robson.
Keep up the great work, James. Thank you for keeping us in the loop throughout the whole window, and we'll hopefully speak to you soon. Thank you, pal. If you've loved the video, hit like, hit subscribe, and we'll be back with more transfer rounds up and getting you the behind the scoop details that potentially you don't hear and see throughout the summer transfer window. And just one last thing, remember, 1st of July, all for United changes completely, and you'll see that soon. I'll speak to you guys in a bit. Thank you. Ciao for now.